Hello again, beautiful beings of light. Welcome back to another Monday live video. Wow, it has been a crazy week. I have so many other interesting topics lined up for these live videos. I feel like so much happens in just one week that I got to cover it all. And there's been a lot happening since the Large Hadron Collider turned on last week. And honestly, it was the full-on Canadian internet outage that really prompted me to tap into this topic again. So, as per usual, take or leave any of this information. If it resonates with you, it's for you. If not, then don't worry about it. It's not for you at this time, and that is totally okay. We're going to be talking about how timelines work today. I was really prompted to actually explain timelines to you so that you actually understand how CERN is messing with the timelines. And then I just channeled a ton of information that we need to know about what exactly is taking place since the Hadron Collider turned on and how can we best kind of navigate these insane frequencies at this time. All right, so definitely get your notebooks ready because we are deep diving into it. Before I begin, I just hopped out of the Inner Earth Summit, which is technically the Galactic Federation Summit that happens on the 11th of every month, and it was amazing. I learned so much. There's just so much information. So if you want to know a little bit more about Inner Earth, their opinions of the Galactic Federation and the governments here and the dynamics down there, and even we checked in with the children who are in the underground bunkers. If you want to know all of those updates, then definitely check out the Inner Earth recording. It should be ready in a couple of hours, so please don't buy it. Expect it to be in your email right away if you are watching this live. If not, you can buy it and it'll pop up right away. All right, so yeah, definitely check that out. And then this video and the Inner Earth Summit was sponsored by the Galactic Federation Apparel, so check it out. I wear this stuff all the time, and it's not only really, really comfortable, but it has that vibration to it. It has that message, and I always get really awesome questions anytime I'm walking around wearing this stuff. What is a light worker? Who is the Galactic Federation of Light? It's like, oh, okay, cool. Like, let me tell you about it. So definitely check that out. And of course, as always, you guys, like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. Please subscribe to the channel and share this video if it resonates with you and makes a lot of sense about what's going on in your own reality and life. All right, so let's just kind of go right into how timelines work. Now, because I see everything very visually, especially in my remote viewing, I want to explain timelines and essentially how they work in a visual way without maybe making it too complex. So timelines are just pathways of a reality. Timelines you can think of as possibilities in your reality. There's a timeline where I wrote a note in green ink instead of purple, and so on and so forth. All right? But timelines don't get started in the physical reality. Timelines actually get started in the etheric realms, in the higher vibrational densities. And what I mean by that is your mind creates timelines, which is pretty badass. So essentially, when you think about something, and I'll use the example recently, I was unloading groceries in the back of my car, and as I opened my trunk, a glass bottle of kombucha fell out and just broke, and it just shattered everywhere. And so for about a week after, I was so worried every time I passed by that spot on my grass that I was going to step on a glass piece. And then I realized halfway through, my fear of stepping on glass is creating the timeline where I actually step on a piece of glass. So every time I walked by that area, instead I would say, I am free and clear. I am safe to walk on this grass with my bare feet. And I would just say that over and over again, and that would essentially usurp the timeline of my fear. Okay. And it worked. I haven't, knock on wood, stepped on glass yet, which is amazing. And I think for the most part, I picked up all the pieces. Now, that being said, this is how timelines work. It works on what we focus on. All right. So you can think about timelines as a transparent layer of energy. So if I say I want to manifest a cup of coffee, and that is a timeline that I'm projecting out there, it's this very thin, very transparent layer of a cup of coffee. The more I focus on that timeline, like waking up every morning and saying, I want a cup of coffee, the more you are adding those transparent layers to the thought that you're having. The more that you add those transparent layers to the thought, the more and more it becomes dense. I don't know if that was like a perfect sentence, but the denser it becomes and the lower it gets. And eventually you have this steamy cup of coffee in your hands. And like I said, if you wake up every day and say, I want a cup of coffee, and then you manifest it, you're perpetuating the timeline reality of manifesting that cup of coffee. You're making it more and more dense and more applicable to your reality. Now, for example, if you want to manifest something that you've never before manifested and you have a lot of doubt around it, then it's something that you need to focus on to create those transparent layers of density into a much more dense layer, and eventually it will pop into your physical reality. I wanted just to mention how I observe timelines. That's how timelines happen. They happen through our focus, and essentially our focus can also be our vibration. If you're in vibrational alignment with something, you manifest it, and we know this, all right? Okay. Now, of course, the collective timelines are being manipulated. And how are they being manipulated? Of course, based on the laws of the universe, timelines cannot be fucked with. And they can't be because we have the law of non-intervention or the law of free will. However, our collective timelines here are being messed with, they are being manipulated, and the way that they're being manipulated is through driving fear into the masses. Yes, we all know this, that fear is the main manipulation tactic and propaganda of the shadow governments. And that fear will lower our vibration, and then we fear the fear and we create more fear, and it's this crazy perpetual paradigm. Now, our individual timelines are really important because we can actually escape the collective timelines and create our own individual timelines. And I called it a singular direct impact. All right. So if our timeline is, say, of a higher frequency, then we're actually usurping the collective timeline and we're injecting higher vibrations into the collective timeline. All right. So we do have a singular direct impact on the collective timeline. But in order for our individual timeline or reality to impact the collective one, we need to make sure the collective timeline is not impacting our singular timeline. All right? And we've talked about this plenty of times before, that we need to make sure that the chaos, the polarity, the projection, the propaganda, the false light is not seeping into our reality. How do we do that? We do that by assuring that our intuition is aligned. And basically what that means is go within. Stop seeking out validation external to you. You already have all the answers. You already know what is right and what is aligned to you and what is not. And it's really important that you stop watching something, you stop reading something, you stop interacting with someone that does not give you unifying timelines, unifying frequencies. And this is actually exactly what a being in Inner Earth just told the group. And they were a Syrian, some sort of like ancient Syrian being. And he was basically like, we gotta stop letting this affect us. At least I think that was who said that. Okay, good. So let's move on to CERN. How does CERN work? How does CERN manipulate the timelines? Now that we know what exactly a timeline is, how does CERN come into play with this? Like I had to channel this information because I didn't know, but I was really curious. I understand the layers of focus. I understand how to bring things in and create things and manifest things through intention. But what is CERN doing, and how is CERN messing with those timelines? This is what I channeled. Once again, take it or leave it. So essentially, there's two kind of aspects here. Within CERN, the individuals who are working within CERN are absolutely split. And I'm getting more and more of this validation that there are two very different sides to CERN. One side is shadow government. One side is white hats or Galactic Federation volunteers or whatever you want to call them. But there are two very clearly different agendas that are happening within CERN. I'm not surprised because the Large Hadron Collider is so big and so impactful that we need to have both sides there present. I'm controlling things. So here's what I channeled. I literally remote viewed. I went over to CERN. I went over to the Hadron Collider. I saw their basically, what do you call it? Like an underground, I always say base, but it's not. Almost like an underground laboratory. And the majority of it, yes, it's like the giant circular machine, but there's also like a lot of different rooms where they analyze all of the data. Like a data analyzing center is down there too. So here's what I channeled from the beings or the people who are there that are of the dark, okay, or of the shadow government. Their main goal with the Hadron Collider is to create chaos. And this is really obviously irresponsible. It felt like, from what I channeled, they don't even have a plan. They just want to screw with the timelines as much as possible. And I will say that in the past, they just screwed with the timelines as much as possible to create chaos. In the present, they have a little bit more of a plan to basically backtrack some of the awakening timelines. That's kind of their plan in a general sense. But they still think if they switch it as much as possible, if they create as much chaos as possible, then they'll win. Then they'll just spiral us into nothingness. That's what I picked up from the shadow government. The white hat infiltrators, this is what I called them in my channel. Oh yeah, this is so fascinating. Okay, hold on. All right, I'm just going to say it. So essentially what I channeled from the white hat infiltrators is that they are experimenting with very specific frequencies. This is what came through. Never really thought about this before. So what came through is that when they start it up, okay, when they start this machine up, they plan very specific days and even very specific times to start it up. These are the white hats, okay? The dark elites, it doesn't really seem like they know what they're doing other than to create chaos. The white hats are like, oh, we gotta shut down this experiment, and on the back end, it's because it doesn't align to a certain frequency. And I didn't really understand this. I'm like, what do you mean you started up at certain times? Like, I don't understand that. And they basically said that whenever they start this machine, it will amplify and perpetuate those frequencies of that moment. So think about numerology, think about astrology, think about the alignment of the stars, right? That all affects us, and therefore it affects the whole frequency of the globe. So the white hats are starting this Hadron Collider at certain moments in time when our vibration is peaked. And one of the things that came through is they watch the Schumann resonance. And that comes into play with when they start this machine, and they want to amplify and perpetuate the higher vibrational frequencies. The dark elites, they have no idea what's going on. They're not tracking these things. They just want to create chaos. And because of that, a lot of these infiltrator white hats, they're not even going, like nothing is noticed. You know what I mean? Like a lot of the dark agenda people, like they don't even know that the white hats are there, which is so fascinating. Okay, and then this is what I had to ask about like how else do they manipulate our timelines, or how else does CERN and the Hadron Collider work? And this is what I received. Once again, take it or leave it. I'm definitely not a scientist or quantum particle accelerator expert. the force or impact of the particles create the ripple or split. This is how the timeline split. It's okay, so this is what they said. They showed me this image. It's the force or impact of the particles when they slam together that creates this ripple effect that essentially split the different timelines or realities. They also mentioned that the other factor is the particles, or they called it the ingredients, okay, which are the particles that they choose, also have an impact. Once again, it is the force of the particles slamming into each other that create the ripple and the split, and then it's also the particles that they choose to slam into each other, or the ingredients that they choose, also have an impact on what timelines are affected. It's definitely not a perfect science. It kind of seems like both sides know different aspects of it. Once again, the white hats, it's the timing of when they choose each experiment. Oh yeah, and then this is really fascinating. There is a room in CERN that I saw, and it seems like every particle collider has one of these rooms. This one was quite large, and I was like, what is this room and why am I being shown this room? This is me remote viewing. And they said that the room was unimpacted by the experiment. And I'm like, what? And they called it the timeline stabilizer. So the reason why they have this room, okay, so essentially it's a room that when they start messing with the timelines and they start up these experiments, the room is unimpacted by the experiments, by the timeline changes. And I said, and the majority of the scientists who are at CERN, they don't even know about the room, let alone are allowed in the room. But certain people who know the most amount of information, like I said, some bad, some good, get into the room, and then they observe how that experiment has changed the reality for the planet Earth, which is wild. Once again, take it or leave it. But they called it a timeline stabilizer. What changed? All right, cool. Okay, so I can't read my own writing. That's fantastic. Oh yeah, recent events. That's what it says. So there's a lot of stuff that's been going on in the past week. The ex-president of Japan got assassinated. Boris Johnson is resigning. The Canadian internet pretty much completely crapped out. And I want to say, when I channeled the Canadian internet stuff, which is a part of some of the CERN stuff, basically what I channeled is that we're going to see this more often. All right, so for those of you who don't know and who obviously aren't in Canada, one of Canada's largest internet providers, and unfortunately Canada is socialist in the way that the government runs the telecommunications, which is scary AF, by the way. And essentially all debit transactions went out because it was based on this provider. 911 lines were stopped, like for a whole day. Pretty much everyone in Canada didn't have internet. There's a couple other providers that were fine, but what I channeled is that we are going to see this more often. More internet and even power outages, which I'm sure if that keeps happening, I'll do another whole video on it. Obviously, the Georgia Guidestones completely blew up, which is so fucking weird. There's a huge Uber leak. I mean, that's just to name a few, all right? What I channeled about all of these recent events, my greatest question is, are these worldly events related to CERN? And the response that I got was, the majority of them are. I mean, not all of them, but the majority of them are. And I kept getting the same, and my whole head is tingling. The old realm is collapsing. The old realm is collapsing. We're seeing it. And then, and then I also got the download of, this is an intervention from the White Hats. This is an intervention from the White Hats. And I want to just very clearly state that. The other thing that I channeled was timeline movement. Things are happening rapidly. And it's almost like they're kicking up this Hadron Collider to speed up the collapse of the old reality. It's just so funny how in one organization, there are these two very different sides, and one side thinks that the other side doesn't know about them, and there's like this like weird I don't know, there's like weird battle, but I guess there's like polarity and shadow government elites and then also white hat elites stuck within every facet of humanity. So I guess it's not super surprising that they're both there, but kind of funny when you look at it from such an objective angle. The other thing that has shown up in this past week, and I just want to mention it, is dreams. Has anyone else experienced the most wacky, the craziest, the most vivid, the most thought-provoking, but also confusing AF dreams that you've ever had? Here's what I channeled about this. Now, part of the dreams that I've been having and that a lot of people around me have been having are inception dreams. I'm calling them inception dreams based on the movie. Like literally my friend Zach, who's staying here, woke up, all right? He opened the window and then he went back to bed. And then he woke up again and he got up and he went pee and he went back to bed. And then he woke up again and he peed the bed and he went back to bed. And then he woke up and he's like, oh my God, I'm actually awake. I'm actually here. None of that actually happened. That was all just dream. Inception dreams. I've had multiple inception dreams this past week of like going over to someone in the dream saying, hey, you're dreaming, wake up, you're dreaming, only to wake up and still be in the dream, to fall asleep and to wake up in real life again. I'm like, what is happening? And from what I've channeled about that, we are getting trained, and it just gives me like literal full body chills. We are getting trained in our dreams. We're getting trained in our sleep of how to deal with and work with this quantum reality. That's what's happening. We're getting trained, you guys. And if you're not having vivid dreams and you're not having inception dreams, then please ask to get trained. Only if you feel ready to get trained. All right? But you know, our spirit guides, the Galactic Federation, there's a lot of beings out there right now, a lot of spirits, a lot of souls who want to help us with this. And we need to learn how to essentially be our own Hadron Collider. That is the level that we want to get to, is what timeline do you want, and choose the frequency and focus on it and bring it into this density. And we can all do that. We all need to learn how to do that. Just like we've got a guy who works on the house here in Canada, and he is a construction worker, right? He just does like renovations and stuff. And he's like, I work so hard, but I'm not getting any clients and I'm really not making much money. And I said, all you need to do is you need to ask for what kind of job you want. I said, ask for a $20,000 job. You can do it. And he's like, oh, well, they're usually, you know, maybe $2,500, $3,000 jobs. It's not usually that much. And I said, Peter, ask for it. Stop doubting and just ask. Don't worry about how or when or where. Just ask for what you want. A week later, he texts me. He's like, oh my goodness, Elizabeth, you're so insane because I asked for a $20,000 job and the next day I landed a random out of the blue opportunity. Turns out that job was $21,000, right? This is the time where there is so much movement happening in our reality where we can hop into any timeline we want to instantaneously. All right? Okay, so my last question is, what can we do at this time? It's a crazy time, but what can we do about it? And the information that came through is hold firm to your highest potential timeline, both collective and individual. We can't just be asking for what we want for ourselves, and we definitely shouldn't be asking for just what we want for the collective. We need to be aligning our individual timeline with the collective. You will never be able to create abundance and harmony and unity in the collective timeline if you don't first experience that in your individual, because it's not coming from a place of embodiment. We can really only attract and manifest and create something in this density if we embody it. Embody that for yourself first and spread that to the rest of the world. All right? Of course, like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this content. Thank you all so, so much for being here. Big shout out to the Galactic Federation of Light Apparel for bumping up my wardrobe and sponsoring this video. So thank you all so, so much. Of course, I will be here every single week, and I've got an incredible membership platform if you are hungry for more content. Bye for now.